Sox lose this game, you obviously have a lot of work to do in many different areas. 2-2 coming. And struck him out, and that's the ball game. 6-1 the final score. Red Sox fall here in the finale of this series. They wind up winning this series. But right now, one game over 580-79. They are officially eliminated from postseason play with that defeat.
And you can kind of see the looks on the faces in that dugout. They kind of know. They were looking at that scoreboard. They know exactly what they needed to do to make a run at this. And unfortunately tonight, that was it.
That was a couple of nights ago. Red Sox officially, formally, mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, now playing out the string officially. But we all know the truth. Season was over a while ago. They were never really in control of their own destiny for the final, call it month and a half of the season, somewhere in there. They were in control at the trade deadline, pretty much. Really, the All-Star break, I guess you could even go back to, and then after that, really just plummeted. And going to end up within a couple of games of 500. Best case scenario, it's 83. Worst case, it's 80 in terms of the win total. That's where they are. 617-779-0985. That's where they are in 2024. Where they are beyond that is a bigger, much more involved question, and is really the primary topic on this Baseball Hour Roundtable tonight. Milliken's here, McCarthy's here. We'll have one more show on Monday with Jared Carabas, and that'll be it. No, once again, the calendar turns to October. There will be no Baseball Hour because the Red Sox are not playing in October. So let me just say quickly, we'll do like opening thoughts here. We'll take your calls. We'll get to Kenley Jansen for the most part in the next segment, who has left the Red Sox. And his nameplate is off his locker. 3 games to go, but apparently for Kenley Jansen, the season's 159 games. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but let's start with Milliken. You go first.
Yeah, I thought there was a really interesting piece from Jen McCaffrey today involving Tristan Casas overall that really painted him in a different light than what we've kind of seen going back to that article last June you spoke about, his routines maybe not exactly sitting well with the coaching staff or whatever it may be. This entire article from Jen McCaffrey kind of framed it as, this quirkiness, this guy that has really become someone in the Red Sox clubhouse that is loved. Josh Winkowski called him one of his favorite teammates. They spoke about his work ethic and how it's almost unrivaled. And, at Fenway Park this year so far, at 1 a.m, they're basically telling him, hey, we're closing the ballpark in an hour. You have to get out of here. All these different things, even down to AAA, where he was sitting and having these long conversations with Marcelo Meyer and, treating everyone in the clubhouse and all these coaching members, the staff, whatever, to these great meals and everything. I did think it was nice to see Tristan Casas starting to be painted in a positive light because I feel like the negativity around him has gotten a little crazy where people are trying to frame him as, this selfish player or clubhouse cancer, or, just in a light that I don't think that's ever been him. He does his own thing. He kind of goes about it his own way. And I think nothing's been better over the last week than him kind of shoving that whole weird 2-week stretch where he was being treated like a platoon player. The 3-homer game, the last one coming off a lefty. He's had a couple hits off lefties since then. But it was nice to see Tristan Casas covered in a different light that wasn't as negative. Now, if you want to get all conspiracy theory here, is this them trying to paint up everything and make it look a little bit better before they trade him? You could fly that out there. But I think Tristan Casas is, at least in that piece, it was much more true to reality than what we've been having as a conversation lately.
McCarthy.
I just can't accept the fact that the season's over again, really, that they missed the playoffs again, and there is no defense for this, guys. And this year, over the course of the last 5 years, in some ways, is the hardest to swallow as a Red Sox fan because it was so attainable. And it was so there. It was so right in front of them. There is no excuse for this team missing the playoffs for the 5th time in 6 years, especially given the competition in the American League this year. Failing to beat out the Tigers, a team that 2 months ago wasn't even trying to make the playoffs. They sold at the deadline. Failing to beat out the Minnesota Twins, who, if you've been watching, they have been playing just a hideous brand of baseball. The other night, they're bunting into double plays. Correa's quitting, 45 feet down the line. You couldn't beat out those teams. The Tigers and the Twins for the 6th playoff spot in the American League. Let me reemphasize that. The 6th playoff spot in the American League. It is easier than it has ever been to make the playoffs in baseball. The Red Sox have now missed the playoffs in the 4 easiest seasons in the history of Major League Baseball to make the playoffs. 2020, when it was an 8-team playoff format, and the last 3 years since they expanded to the 6-team playoff format, the Red Sox have missed the playoffs in all 4 of those seasons. I cannot stand for this. I cannot accept this as a Red Sox fan. Undeniably, there were some positive things that happened this year with the young players across the organization, but that does not and will never excuse the Boston Red Sox missing the playoffs, especially given the competition, especially given how easy it is. This season was a failure. Any season the Boston Red Sox miss the playoffs in this format with this competition is a failure. And I just can't accept this as a Red Sox fan. Once again, no October baseball. That sucks.
And look, the idea that the Red Sox somehow exceeded expectations, let me just tell you this, that there are 15 teams in the American League, and based on wins and losses, winning percentage, not divisions or anything of the like, they're 9th. 9th in the league. 9th. Is that good enough?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so now, just quickly, because I've said some of this earlier in the week, and then we'll get right to your phone calls. There was a time when the Red Sox, under this ownership, had certain goals and standards for this organization, 95 wins per year, and an above-average player at every position. Last year, 78 wins. The year before, 78 wins. I think the year before was 91, might have been 90, but they got into the playoffs, and they made some noise in October 2021, which we all appreciate and enjoyed. The year before that was the COVID year. They were horrible. They ended up with the number 4 pick in the draft. They only played 60 games. I think they were 24-36, if I remember right. So fine. The wins aren't there. Now let me ask you this, because it relates more to the future. How many guys do they have an above-average player at on the field? And I went through, and I'm going to try to do this quickly, so bear with me. I had to set some plate appearance limits to qualify as regular players. Okay, so at catcher, I did 400 plate appearances. I generally did 400 plate appearances at every position except for first base because Casas was hurt, and I wanted to include Casas, so I set it at 200. And this is where they ranked in WAR. Okay, this is where Red Sox players ranked in WAR among qualifying players. Catcher, Connor Wong, 14th out of 16. Tristan Casas, first base, 29th out of 52. Third base, Rafael Devers, 3rd out of 29. So for all of you bitching about Devers, and please, bitch away. He's the least of their problems.
Yep.
Second base, I couldn't find a guy to look up.
They would need to have one.
I'm serious. One of the big questions coming into this year is who's going to play second base? Last year, the Red Sox need a second baseman. They traded for Vaughn Grissom. He never played.
It's not just this year, Maz. It's been 5 years of doing this at second base.
So the point is, they are in the same spot now that they were a year ago. They don't have a second baseman. They don't have it.
That's where you're getting Vaughn Grissom, and they're getting excited over that 3-for-4 night the other day.
Please.
I'm not telling you to run with it, but you can already tell they're setting up for some combination of that, and whether it's Romy Gonzalez or whatever it may be in 2025.
Run with it. I want to run away from it.
Shortstop, they had injury. Obviously, Trevor Story, but he was injured again the last year. So here's what I did. Do you know that Trevor Story, I'm assuming he's in the lineup tonight?
Yes, yeah, batting
Third.
second.
Tonight's his 162nd game as a member of the Red Sox. 162. Makes his baseball reference 162 game average nice and easy.
Got a full season out of Trevor Story. How about that?
For the
it took
Red
him
Sox.
3 years.
Yeah, it took him 3 years.
Oh.
But as of right now, Trevor Story's OPS with the Red Sox over the 3 years is 692.
Worth it.
God.
Okay, that is 27th out of 51 guys. But thankfully, you can also measure WAR over that period of time.
Even better.
692, Maz, by the way, lower than Bobby Dahlbeck's 714 career OPS with the Red Sox.
In WAR, Trevor Story in his 3 years as a member of the Red Sox ranks 35th out of 51.
Yep, he's not very good.
So the only position so far where you are above average is third base. That's it. And to save the Red Sox and save a little work, I just did outfielders, period. I didn't break them into left, center, and right. There were 80 outfielders. Jarren Duran was third. William Abreu was 24th. Tyler O'Neill was 34th. Rafaela came in at 63rd. So for those of you who are pumping up Rafaela, and I think he has promise too, but below average. Tanner Houck, 64 starting pitchers in the big leagues who threw 150 innings. Starters, Tanner Houck, 11th in WAR. Bayo and Crawford, 47th and 49th, below average. DH, Yoshida, 23rd out of 34, below average. So I've now given you what? 9 positions plus 3 starters? And I have 5 people who are above average.
That sucks.
You haven't even mentioned a bullpen that's going to need a pretty significant makeover.
Yeah.
So I went closer. Kenley Jansen, 23rd out of 201 relievers who qualified. I think I did a minimum of 40 innings pitched to keep it low. He just skipped town. He's a free agent. By the way, Tyler O'Neill, who's another one of your players that was above average, he didn't skip town, but he's a free agent. So of the 5 guys who are above average, 2 of them are gone. Think about that. How many above average players are there really on this roster?
It's a
Not
great
many.
point, Matt.
But
Not many. Go ahead.
I do think there's certain ways, though, right, when you frame things. Like, they were the 7th best offense in baseball this year. 7th in terms of OPS. Their rotation was the 6th best in terms of ERA. So when you're kind of
and they're
jumping...
9th in the American League.
Yes,
I don't mean
you
to
are.
interrupt you,
and a big
but
part of
where
that
are
is
the
defense.
results?
A big part of that is defense, right? But you were also a team that was 10 games above 500 at the trade deadline, just like the Tigers at that time were 3 games below 500. I think where you're really in big trouble here and where you need to start things, because I think you talk about Trevor Story and what we've seen from him since he's come back. It's 268, 359, 429, 788 OPS. That's 18% above league average as a hitter. McCarthy, I know you don't buy him.
But Tyler,
hitting
how
righties.
many games?
That's the concern. But I think when you talk what's happened to Trevor Story, right? Are we expecting the shoulder to explode on another dive? I would not. You're expecting another elbow reconstruction surgery, which existed before he got there.
I just know I'm not counting on him to play a full 162 or anywhere close to it. He hasn't done it in 3 years.
And I think part of it, you had a freak elbow injury that existed before that has been fixed. We don't have to worry about it. You're not expecting the elbow ligaments to blow up. Do I expect his shoulder to explode next time he dives? No, I wouldn't go that far. If you want to be worried about Tristan Casas, I think that's very real, right? You talk about a guy who's now had multiple injuries early in his career that aren't absolute freak injuries either, whether you want to talk about the shoulder initially or whatever it may be. But you don't get as much as those WAR things go, and I think that's where you can get a little too far with some of those stats. Weird to be in that position and say it. When you're a top 7 offense in baseball and still, a top 6 in terms of rotation, there's more to work with there than some of those numbers would say.
Okay, so Tyler, listen, I'm not telling you where they're going. None of us knows that. None of us knows.
No.
I'm just telling you where they are. What the goal was 15 years ago, what they believed they were, the identity of the franchise, 95 wins and above average player at every position. This is 3 years in a row where they're basically coming in at 80. And they have more below average positions on the field than they do above average positions on the field. Now, you can say, well, Story's an asterisk or fine, whatever. You can believe whatever you want. I'm just telling you what it is. Hold the thought. 617-779-0985. We'll take your calls when we come back on the Baseball Hour.
than it was in 2023. I don't know that for sure. We don't talk about specific payroll numbers, but I want to be clear that the build that we're engaged in and have been engaged in will dictate the spend. We were engaged with some long-term, high-profile free agent discussions that we didn't match up on, and we're going to stay disciplined with this approach to make sure that we have this growing core of young players, and that's really important because we think that's going to position us for the best chance to be successful for the long term going forward.
That was Sam Kennedy back in January. And what I took from that at the time was the Red Sox will spend when they think they're ready. And they think they're ready to contend. So my question is, when's that? Are they there now? If you're one of these people with a positive outlook, Tyler, and I'm not picking on you, Tyler, but whoever else who thinks that these young guys are coming and they're ready to win, well, then you more than anybody should be putting pressure on the team to add now.
I feel like I've been doing that really for 2 years, unfortunately. I've been the one sitting here and telling you if you gave a little bit more to this young core, you'd be in a completely different spot.
Agreed.
I felt this way about the team a year ago when I was crying. I was crying going into this season, and that's why I sit here, and while I'm nervous and I'm uncomfortable, I cling to those Craig Breslow comments of him saying the state of the build is strong, because I haven't heard someone say that in a few years. Doesn't mean anything different will happen. I got to see it.
So let's see it. Now, again, I'd prefer they have the pieces in place already so that now they hit the ground running. You integrate some, there's that whole theory of the first year with a free agent, they don't always play their best, et cetera, et cetera. Then why didn't you do it a year ago? Hit the ground running for 2025.
That was what Heim wanted to do when it came to Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin.
But, so again, we're in the same spot. When are they going to put the pieces around? Where's the pitching going to come from? A bunch of callers lined up. I'm going to ask you one thing and one thing only. Please try to make your point quickly so we can get to as many people as possible. Barry in Somerville. Barry, go ahead.
So this is right along with what we're talking about. I believe that this winter the Red Sox are going to add a lot, either with a big free agent deal or a big trade. Because all along, they've been pointing to a 2025 as their goal for being good. And I think that everything that they've done can be explained by that goal.
Well, so Barry, look, I hope you're right. But honestly, it's still too late. They've flushed how many seasons down the toilet?
It's indefensible.
Do you believe that they'll do it?
Not to the extent like going nuts. I think they'll spend up to about the luxury tax.
Yeah, they've sold you a bill of goods on this. They've said, it's about the process. It's about being sustainable. Just wait and see. We'll spend money eventually. I will believe it when I see it. I think that's nothing short of a lie.
I'll also add the idea that they always sold 2025 as absolute garbage because in 2022 they had gone over the luxury tax, which for this group is a significant thing at this point. The absolute fumbling of it by Heim Bloom and then not getting underneath seemed to stall them out multiple years, and they got to this point. But Heim Bloom believed they were going in a different direction, and that's where those Martin and Jansen signings came from.
Casey in Boston. Casey, what do you got?
I just think that it's a little crazy that the Tigers' playoffs odds back in August 11th was 0.2%, and the Red Sox have been trying to shove down your throat for years that they don't have good enough playoff odds come the trade deadline, which have been over 30%, when they didn't even clear 10% reaching September 14th.
Casey,
so
it's a great point, Casey. Again, the playoff probability and Heim Bloom saying that they would put some stock in those numbers and that, that the math would determine their approach. Now, look, again, they picked up a couple of guys, but it was an aggressive approach, and Detroit let them go. Mm-hmm. But here's the point. It's unpredictable. Generally, though, it doesn't hurt you to add players. Might not help fully, but it doesn't hurt. Jack in a car. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Bass. Hey, I'm going to defend the indefensible. We need to trade Rafael Devers, and I'll give you the reasons why. He is out of shape. He's one of those guys who's going to lose bat speed as he gets into his early 30s, and we need to have pitching. And no one would bring back more pitching than Rafael Devers.
Okay, I'm going to let you go because go ahead. Quickly, get
$300 million. You think you're getting back some crazy package? The Red Sox aren't eating that money, and whatever team takes that money on knows he's going to be a DH after 30.
He's a really good player, but the contract makes him untradeable. Or if you're trading him, you're getting prospects in return. No. I don't get what people don't get about this.
How much power do you want to take out of the lineup?
They don't have enough.
They need more power as it is. You want to give away Devers? Again, I just gave you the numbers. Position by position, he's one of the few guys on the team who have that's an above-average player at his position, and that's based on WAR. Okay, I'm not giving you OPS or anything. WAR, factoring in everything.
And I'll add, Maz,
he's above average.
Yeah, and defensively this year, I know eye test-wise, a lot of people say it was better. Metric-wise, it said he's been the same guy he's always been defensively, but you go to who he was really around August 1st before the injuries caught up, he was on pace for his best season we've ever seen.
Mike and Quincy on ownership. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just wondering, there was this team I love, you guys are micro here. Macro, let's look back at this. They don't care. They just want asses in the seats. As long as those seats are filled, they don't really care. It's a mid-team, and so long as they have people that are showing up, look at the promotions they're running.
So, Mike,
swim cap night.
Yeah, so, Mike, are you okay with that?
I mean, I don't know. Doesn't it feel like double or triple A? I feel like,
yes.
Where's Fireworks Fridays?
Yes, but I know what it feels like. Are you okay with them taking that approach?
No, because if you're making that money, which you are off of these visiting teams' fans, why aren't you spending it and paying contracts with it?
You're using it elsewhere.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, so listen, again.
Other ventures.
And I'm not disagreeing with you about what they are and what they've become and what ownership's attitude is, what it feels like. It doesn't feel like they want to win like they used to. That's what it feels like. That's a fact. Is that okay? So we shouldn't say anything and just accept it? That's all right? Because I don't think it's ever all right with any of the teams in town, not just the Red Sox.
And especially when they're sitting there and they're spitting in your face last offseason and telling you what their intentions are for the season after the season ticket renewal. They think you're stupid. They waited until after that deadline to say, we really view it as a development year for the Big Three and we need to get to that point. Beforehand, Sam Kennedy would have called you a liar if you called them cheap and like they weren't trying to sign guys. That was the messaging he was pushing. That's where he was freaking out anytime someone put a mic in his face. And the guy had to apologize for it all spring training and absolutely get pants in front of the media for it.
Matt, how old are you?
33.
Okay, so when did you start watching the Red Sox?
Oh, 95. It's my first memories watching the Red Sox. You know, the Mo Vaughn getting up on the horse. Yes, I've loved the Red Sox since I came out of the womb.
Okay, so for the large majority of your life, they've never been anything but championship contenders.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, honestly, the tail end of the Yawkey Trust years was when they started building the team up for sale. They had Pedro Martinez. Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good my entire life outside of this.
So again, I've been through this before. This to me is like the early 90s.
I was going to say, that's exactly what it is.
I've been through this before, and I thought we would never see this again. Not at this level. Eddie in Sudbury. Eddie, go ahead.
It's crazy to me how many people want to get rid of the only good things the Red Sox have in Rafael Devers. But the worst part about being a Red Sox fan in modern day is that there's more excitement about what's going on at Polar Park than there is at Fenway, which is disgusting. It makes me feel like a Miami Marlins fan with crappier weather. But the even scarier part about the whole thing is everyone talks about the Big Three like they are all surefire first ballot Hall of Famers, and none of them have seen a professional pitch yet. We are getting set up for the biggest 5-year rebuild letdown in maybe professional sports history, and we just haven't realized it yet.
So, Eddie, they have seen professional pitchers. They just haven't seen big league pitchers, right? The minor leagues, they're being paid, so they're professionals, and that's a minor thing to pick at, but just to be clear on it, I will say this, that this whole idea of what it's going to be, when the Red Sox won in 2007, Theo Epstein said something that I will never forget because I thought it was a great line. He said, our last 5 years have been better than anybody's in baseball. And that would be, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07.
Yep.
Okay, they went to 3 league championship series. They made the playoffs 4 times. They won 2 World Series. They were at the top of the game. And he said, and I don't think we would trade our next 5 with anybody else either. Because remember, they won in 07. Pedroia was here. Ellsbury had arrived.
Youkilis.
Youkilis was in the middle of it. And Lester, Papelbon,
Young Clay,
Buck Holtz, They were all there. Everyone thought they were in a great spot. This could be a dynasty. That's what was being tossed around. They had to rip that whole thing apart 5 years later, and then they won in 2013 with a completely transient group of players. Okay, so this idea that we all thought they were on the cusp of something great, and it never materialized. They got back to the LCS in 08, but they were beat up and they lost. And then 9, 10, 11, and 12, they were a major disappointment.
Yep.
Major. So you can keep hyping the future if you want, talking about the prospects and about what's coming. I would just tell you it's very brittle, as we all know.
Real quick, Maz. Milliken said earlier, the state of the build is strong, right? That's the Craig Breslow quote. Those numbers you just gave me and us about Red Sox players above average, below average, you name it. Is the state of the build really as strong as they think it is? Given the performance at the big league level and given the questions about, whether Meyer, Campbell, Teal, Anthony are going to morph into that next great core of Red Sox players, I don't think the state of the build is as strong as they think it is, because you know what? It almost never is.
So I'll tell you what, we'll get to that, and we'll get to Kenley Jansen, whose nameplate has been taken off his locker at Fenway Park and who has left the team. Alex Cora commented on it, and by the way, he's not the only one who skipped out early. We'll get to that after Majori gets you caught up on, I'm sorry, McCarthy. Again, I do this every week. I mean, why stop now? McCarthy will get you caught up on headlines. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back on the Baseball Hour.
As Tony Maserati said, Kenley Jansen is not the only baseball figure in Boston to skip town.
Should we do an attendance check?
Yeah, let's do that.
Matt McCarthy.
Here.
Tyler Milliken.
Present.
James Stewart. Here. Tony Maserati. Bueller. Maz. Did we take the nameplate off his locker?
I think we did. Well, I mean, it's a Friday, so what would you expect?
I mean, I'm surprised we get half the show out of him, quite frankly.
Honestly, the commitment to the square table bit on the Baseball Hour Roundtable from
Second
Tony
to none.
Maserati, incredible. I wish the Red Sox were this committed to something. Maz being committed to not working on Fridays is mind-blowing.
It couldn't have ended in any other way. We were here through the whole summer, through all the ups and downs together, powering through when things were at their best, and then ultimately when things got to their worst. Of course, it ends with McCarthy and Milliken and Jay Stu.
So, Jimmy, you have one final, McCarthy and Milliken. I would call it a hostile takeover of the Baseball Hour, but it's not hostile.
No, because Maz voluntarily left.
Maz is the Maginot line. We just go right over it, just right through it, right around it. No defense there. Yeah, no, take it. It's all good. It's all good. So, yep, you get me and Milliken and Stu for the next 30 minutes. A very fitting way.
Sorry, Boston.
Yeah,
we ride.
No kidding. A very fitting way for the Friday night roundtable to end for the 2024 season. One final baseball hour set for Monday night, and we look forward to Maz and Carabas. Stu, can you share with the class as to why you're cracking up so much back there? Can we not share what Majori just said?
So I'll share it because I don't. Jay Stu's unhinged these days anyway.
like that.
So
Yep.
I said to Kevin, Tyler will get this. I said, well, at least we don't have Steve Peralta to listen to.
Oh, Jay Stu.
Red light Peralta.
Body bag.
Feels like an unnecessary shot at Peralta.
Stevie P.
It's necessary.
Stevie P, Jay Stu rivalry is going to be something special.
The thing about it is that the 98.5 audience doesn't know who that is, so, and probably won't for forever.
I do want to talk about the importance of audiences actually at the end of the program today, which we will get to, which actually will tie into your boy, Peralta, and you and everybody out there. But we do have a couple open phone lines for you as we close out the Friday night roundtable, which is now far more square than it was about 10 minutes ago. 617-779-0985. Is there anything left to be said on Kenley Jansen before we move on to the Red Sox offseason, Milliken?
Yeah, I think how I look at him, am I heartbroken? Am I saying, screw Kenley Jansen? I think him leaving early speaks to what this entire year has been and really 2 years of frustration. You can go back to what the conversation was during spring training, right? Where he was complaining about feeling like he was lied to when he initially signed here. He thought, year one we'd be this wild card team. Year two, we're competing for a World Series, especially at the end of his career where all he cares about is saves and chasing rings. Clearly, he was lied to. And I don't think Chaim Bloom did it the wrong way because he thought they were going in a different direction at the end of, he thought 2023 was wild card compete. 2024, he was preparing to spend. That's why they kicked him out in September. But still, to leave your teammates with 3 games left when you were at the trade deadline and you talked about wanting to be here for the ride, you wanted to be with these guys, you didn't want to get dealt, you wanted to see what would happen down the stretch and see if you could, experience playoff baseball in Boston. Lame as hell to walk out with 3 days left.
He quit. They quit on the team. And listen, this is not uncommon in baseball for guys to quit over the course of 162. It happens all the time. It's one of the I think, real challenges of the baseball season is keeping everybody rowing in the same direction over the course of 162 games. It is a grind. It is the most unique thing about baseball compared to any other sport. It is a grind from spring training in February until this point. To keep everybody rowing in the same direction is a tough thing to do. I would just say, though, that Kenley Jansen leaving the team, bad look, bad, message to send to his teammates. Like, yeah, I signed up for 159. You guys signed up for 162. It's a bad look. I would just say this, though. He's not the only guy who's quit on the Red Sox in recent years. They have had a quit problem, and Alex Cora has been the one who's presided over stuff like that. Alex Cora, I think, in some ways helped the team quit in recent years after the trading deadline. It felt to me that maybe Cora quit in protest on that Sunday in Detroit, a team that's going to go to the playoffs now and you're not, because he, did the whole, it felt to me like the Cooper Criswell, Rich Hill protest. He quit, when he wouldn't put Jansen into the game a couple weeks ago on that Sunday against the White Sox. Like, there have been moments here, not only this year, but in years past, where guys in that clubhouse, guys in that locker room, and people in that organization from top to bottom have quit on the idea of competing. Kenley Jansen's just the latest in a long line. So am I going to hold him any more accountable than anybody else? No, but no doubt he's a quitter. 617-779-0985. Frank in Southborough with a thought on Alex Cora. Hi, Frank.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I'm a casual baseball fan. I listen to you guys a lot. I love your show.
Thank you.
I kind of thought about Alex Cora. It seems like big fade every year. Lot of errors. 20 strikeouts the other night. And he sits at the press conferences like he's the Maharishi, like he's the most amazing baseball knowledgeable person. What does this guy have naked pictures of somebody? I don't get him. I like him. I think he's a good person. He's got his family up here in Boston.
Okay, but you just ripped him for 40 seconds. I'll let you go on that. I like him. I think he's a good person, but he acts holier than thou. Alex Cora is a good manager. He is. He's a good nuts and bolts baseball manager. But in some ways, I mean, listen, they're going to miss the playoffs for the 5th time in 6 years. He's been the manager for the majority of those years. He deserves some blame in this. No doubt about it, Tyler.
And there's a certain protection that comes because of his relationship with ownership. We know that. When the fact that a year ago they were considering making him the CBO, the guy who was going to be leading their front office, and I still wouldn't close the door on that because this 3-year extension he signed, who knows what it looks like for Craig Breslow by the end of it. But Cora himself has come out and said, the whole reason we're seeing the thinner Cora and the re-energized Cora up until I'd say about the last month was because he recognized what the last couple years looked like for him.
Mm-hmm.
And 2021 doesn't get grouped into that. He was pouting down the stretch there too. That team just found it the last couple weeks of the season and snuck in on game 162. Now, I will say, you listen to Trevor Story Talk or any of the, big time players in that clubhouse, they will tell you, Alex Cora is one of the best managers in baseball. I wouldn't want to play for anyone else. I think that's where he stands. And I think ultimately when we talk about the talent of this team, the reason they got to 10 games above 500, at the All-Star break was him being able to raise those levels up. He needs more talent at the end of the day to get through 162, but is he a perfect manager? By no means. And I think he got way too platoon happy. Bullpen usage got really weird down the stretch because of the roster construction, and he was trying to make it work. A lot of his, button pushing didn't work over the first 6 weeks of the season like it did in the first 4 months.
If you give Alex Cora a team that is built to win, he will do a good job with that team.
2018.
Yes, no doubt. And, at times, and he can get more out of teams at times because he's a good manager. 2021 for stretches in this year, stretches last year, you name it. But yeah, you can definitely question if he's the right guy for this organization right now, given that they're not as committed to winning as perhaps Alex Cora would be.
And that's where you look at a lot of the young guys on their roster and you wonder, do they need someone who maybe is a little bit more of a developmental guy than a push the chips in and try to win it all? And I'll continue to question that because say what you will about the state of the team, when you have the big 4 and say it's big 3 by the time they make a deal, those guys are going to need kid gloves at least for the first year or two, like a young Xander Bogaerts.
But the Red Sox shouldn't be that. The Red Sox shouldn't be a let's develop guys at the big league level type of thing. The Red Sox should always be contending. And how do they find a way to contend? I think that's the question that we're going to be asking all this offseason, Milliken. Jim in the truck on the Red Sox offseason. Hi, Jim.
Hey, what's going on? So the question is should and will. Who should the Red Sox sign in the offseason? Who's a good free agent? And who, more than likely, will they sign in the offseason?
Milliken?
If you're asking for an arm, the starting pitcher I'm kind of in love with is Max Fried. He's going to be 31 next year, but a lefty, top of the rotation stuff. Now, he's going to cost a lot. It doesn't seem like him and the Braves, more likely than not, are going to figure something out. If you're not going to sign that kind of guy to be at the top of your rotation, which I don't believe they're going to, then I think you start looking at the next tier down. And that's somewhere where, hey, if the Red Sox aren't willing to dish out that big money for a pitcher on the other side of 30, call Shane Bieber, where, yes, age is also a factor there, but you can get him on a couple-year deal coming off Tommy John surgery, and you hope he's closer to, 2020 to 2022 Shane Bieber, and you have a guy that you're buying in on when his stock's kind of low.
I hate that. I hate that. Hate it. And by the way, I love Shane Bieber, and I've been a Shane Bieber fan for a long time. That would be so what the Red Sox have done for years now. We're not going to pay at the top of the market for Max Fried or Corbin Burns, which is exactly where they should be. They need a top-line starting pitcher. They need an ace, and you need to pay for that in some way, shape, or form. So instead of being in on Max Fried or Corbin Burns, who's going to cost you a lot, I do agree it's probably more likely that the Red Sox will pursue somebody like Shane Bieber, who has a high ceiling, is one of the better pitchers in baseball in recent years, but is coming off Tommy John, and they're going to try to repeat the Lucas Giolito experience all over again. Stu?
Would you trade either Jaron Duran or Tristan Casas to the Royals for Cole Regans?
Yes.
They're not
That
doing
guy's a
that.
stud. Now, are the Royals doing that?
No.
I don't know. But Jimmy, you're getting to my point. The Matt McCarthy offseason plan. You ready
I
for
love
this?
this.
The Red Sox need to trade 3 left-handed hitters.
Oh, wait a minute.
What do you mean, oh, wait a minute?
No, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
3. That's interesting.
They need to trade 3. They're 2 left-handed heavy. And in return, they need to get mostly pitching, but also a right-handed hitter somewhere along the way to balance out the lineup a little
Can
bit
argue you
better.
need 2 with Tyler O'Neill walking out.
Well, right, and you need to sign one. So, yes, they need to get more right-handed, and they need to get more pitching. So the way I look at it, 3 left-handed hitters in the organization, somewhere in the organization, need to go. I have broken them down into 3 categories here, Milliken. 1, I consider established big league talent, and like really good big league talent. You need to trade one of Tristan Casas or Jaron Duran. And the reason I make that argument is because a guy like Casas or Duran will bring you back somebody in that profile, Jim.
You want the pitching equivalent of those guys.
Right. Cole Regans, or, I look to Seattle with Logan Gilbert or George Kirby or guys like that. You need to give up something to get something. So I am trading one of Casas or Duran. On top of that, I am trading one of my premier minor league left-handed hitters. Just one. I'm trading one of them. I'm keeping 2 of them. So that's Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, your premier left-handed hitters down there. Of those 3, I'm trading Marcelo Meyer because I think he has the lowest ceiling of those 3. I'm concerned about the injuries. I still think you can get a hell of a lot for him because he's so highly regarded. I would sell as high as you can on Marcelo Meyer, and then I would trade one of kind of what I consider, and this will be harsh on Abreu, I need a better term for this, surplus big league lefties, one of Yoshida or Abreu. I would prefer to trade Abreu because I think you get more in return from Abreu compared to just dumping Yoshida. I don't think you're going to get much for Yoshida, so I'd almost rather keep him knowing that you're not going to get something. So that's my offseason plan. You need to trade 3 lefties. One of Casas or Duran. I'm trading Duran because he's older, speed guy. I think he'll break down. One of your minor league lefties, I'm trading Meyer. And one of the extra lefties on your roster, right now, your big league roster, that's Abreu or Yoshida. I'm trading Abreu because he's getting me maybe a pitcher or a right-handed bat in return.
The only thing I would change there is I would throw Abreu in the same tier as a Casas or a Duran. And I think, you compare Duran and Casas, even those guys are on much different tiers. Jaron Duran's going to finish top 10 in MVP voting. I love Tristan Casas as much as the next guy. We have not seen that over the course of a season of him reach that level. I think you can even talk about what Wilyer Abreu's done right now. Good chance he wins the Gold Glove in right field this year, which is, he's first in defensive runs saved, first in outs above average in the American League right now, second in outfield assists. To me, I would start with the Marcelo Meyer and Wilyer Abreu package and go from there. I'd be interested to see what that could get you. You're still trading a guy who's a top 12 prospect in the entire sport. You're trading a guy in Wilyer Abreu who is big league ready. You have your questions about whether he can hit lefties. That's more than fair. But at the end of the day, he was an above average hitter this year and played Gold Glove defense in the toughest right field in all of Fenway or in all of baseball. I wouldn't jump to trade Duran or Casas because I think if you want to compete, those guys are so important to doing it in 2025 unless you're willing to go out and, invest significantly in a Pete Alonso or something like that.
So here's my only response to that, Milliken, is you need to give up something to get something.
Of course.
If you want to get a premier front of the rotation type starter, that probably starts with Casas or Duran. So that's why I'm willing to part with one of those. I like Wilyer Abreu, but Wilyer Abreu might get me something because he's had a good year and he's a good fielder. He's got a good arm, and I don't know if he can hit lefties, but he can get you something. If your approach is, well, let's package Abreu and Meyer and see what that gets you, that might get you something pretty good. It's not going to get you enough. How many needs do the Red Sox have this offseason? Let's do this real quick. How many starting pitchers do they need?
I think they need 2, but I think they'll get 1.
Okay, so they need 2. They need a closer, right?
I think they'll tell you they don't need a closer. I think they'll tell you they have 2 options to close. They need an 8th inning guy and a 7th inning guy.
So they need 2 bullpen arms.
Agreed.
All right. They need to improve their infield defense, right?
I think that's another spot. I hate to tell you. I think they're going to say those are internal solutions.
And I just don't believe in that.
They're going to tell you.
Hitters.
They're going to tell you we'll play Rafael Devers at third, Trevor Story at short. We expect Vaughn Grissom. Yep. Craig Breslow with some very very weird hype of David Hamilton in his recent comments as well, mentioning him along the likes of guys who broke out this year and showed them a lot. I would be very surprised if we didn't see some combination of Grissom and David Hamilton at second. And then I think Casas is what you have at first. Now, a trade can completely shake that conversation up. And then all of a sudden you're looking at a lot different things. Christian Walker at first base, who's going to be a free agent leaving the Diamondbacks, and you can kind of piece it. Teoscar Hernandez might factor back in as an outfielder or as a DH solution.
So, but the point,
and Rafaela might end up playing second or short.
I think actually maybe their best roster next year is with Rafaela playing second, but that's neither here nor there. What we just did, though, is the Red Sox need 2 starting pitchers, 2 bullpen arms. They need to somehow fix their infield defense, and they need 1 or 2 right-handed hitters.
They kind of need a catcher also.
That's where the infield defense, to me, I think Connor Wong, who is one of the worst blockers and one of the worst framers in all of baseball, actually the worst framer in all of baseball right now, for a team that specializes so heavily in run prevention, Connor Wong is at the heart of everything that has been going wrong.
We just named 5 things they need to do this offseason, roughly, give or take. Only trading Marcelo Meyer and Willie Abreu does not fix all of that. That's why you need to open up the roster more, consider more of these left-handed hitters to trade. Like, they have so many needs, and they have such a surplus here. That's why 3 of those guys, in my opinion, need to go. We will wrap up the Baseball Hour Roundtable for the season next. And Maz ducked out. So it's McCarthy and Milliken for the final time on the Roundtable for the Baseball Hour in the 2024 season. You will have one final episode of the Baseball Hour set for Monday night with Maz and Jared Carabas. So that'll be, as always, a great way to wrap up the season. But in our final 2 minutes here, I just want to tip my cap to the great Jimmy Stewart and to Kevin Majori for all of their hard work over the course of this season. They are the best producers in the business. They do a tremendous job on this show, so I want to thank Jimmy Stewart and Kevin Majori for all of their efforts on the Baseball Hour this season. I'm sure you'd like to do the same.
I echo the exact same thing. Talking ball with them in the afternoon before we do these shows. You think we get fiery while we're doing the actual show? The conversations back there are maybe even more wild.
Every day I walk in and I talk baseball with Milliken for at least 20 minutes.
We have shot so many trade proposals, it looks like an MLB franchise. And let me tell you, Jay Stu's pretty good at building an MLB franchise.
It is a real baseball nerd experience. It is an absolute pleasure to do it every year. I love doing the show every year. I don't take it for granted. It's a lot of fun. It's frankly, I think, the most fun thing I do here at the station of all the fun things I do. I would just say, Milliken, and I say this with all the love and respect in my heart, you do take up a lot of the air here on the Friday nights, which is I'm saying that as a compliment.
Is that a fat joke or a
no?
talking joke?
I'm saying it's a talking
Okay,
thing.
all right, I'll take it.
Will you give me 30 seconds?
Cook.
In particular, one of my favorite things about working this show every year is getting to spend my Friday nights with you. You are a star. You are bigger than all of us and will be bigger than all of us, and I hope you remember us one day. And the reason why you are a star and the reason why you are going to do incredible things in this business, no doubt about it, is because you reach young people who love baseball. And you reach them better than just about anybody else. And we need young people who love baseball. I can reach 85-year-olds because I can talk about Jackie Jensen and watching him on Home Run Derby on ESPN Classic. I've got no problem reaching those people. You, Tyler Milliken, bring in the people that we really need. The Section 10 folks, the young folks who love the Red Sox and love baseball. We need more young people who love the sport, and they're out there, and you connect with them. And that is my absolute favorite thing about working with you each and every Friday night throughout the summer, and I can't wait to do it again next year.
That means the world, McCarthy, and I'll always thank you, and you'll be one of the first people that always comes out of my mouth, because when I first got to this radio station in 2020, and I was this still annoying even back then kid running around the hallways looking for anyone who would talk baseball, I think the real start of us having these debates and conversations started on your old podcast, Hardcore Baseball. And back then we were saying you needed to trade Bobby Delbeck immediately after 2021.
That was right. Yep.
And you were extremely right.
Glad you admitted it.
But
Thank
sitting
you.
here, and even though I like to yell at you and be a nerd and tell you your way of looking at the game isn't the right way, I've learned so much talking ball and just as a person in this industry trying to figure out which direction to take things, how to go about it. And Matt McCarthy, I am the biggest fan of you that has ever existed, and I will always be that. You deserve the world, and it's coming to you very soon.
While we're all pleasuring ourselves here,
Yep.
I just want to say, Matt, I love your baseball takes. I love you as a talent and a host. You've been great. Tyler, I think you're a star.
Yes,
and I
thank
can't wait until you break out more on a national scene, whether it be here or Section 10.
All right. So there we have it. That was way too flowery for my liking.
I'm blushing right now.
Multiple did the same things at the same time.
Yeah, that's very. I'm like Tony Maserati, who hates it, and Maz can't even object to it. You know why? Because it's a Friday night.